This video is going to show you how to solve for missing angles when dealing with parallel lines and transversals. This first example, what we're going to look at is identifying what is the angle of x, y, and z. What we have here is two parallel lines that I've labeled as A and B. We know they're parallel because of the symbol we're using here. We have this single arrow and single arrow, so A and B are parallel to each other. C is my transversal in this case. What we need to do in order to identify the angle of x, y, and z is look at first what we've been given, which is 30 degrees, and then using our rules, so looking at corresponding angles, alternate interior, all that sort of stuff, using those rules to help us identify what are the other three missing angles. So when I look at 30 degrees, it's going to be supplementary with angle x. These two angles would have to add to 180 degrees. So an easy way of coming up with angle x is going 180 and taking away 30 degrees, which is going to give us 150. How we knew that is because these two angles were supplementary to each other. Now that we know x, we know that this is 150 degrees. Perfect. The next one we want to look at is y. When I compare the 30 degrees and the y value, what I notice is that these two things are corresponding angles. The rule that I know about corresponding angles is that if I have two parallel lines being cut by a transversal, the corresponding angles have to be the same. So then what I know is that y is equal to 30 degrees. The reason that is because these are corresponding angles. Last one, looking for z. What I notice is that z is opposite of angle y. So if y is 30 degrees, what I know about opposite angles is that they are always equal to each other. So z also has to be 30 degrees. The reason for that is that it was opposite. And there's an example of how we can use our rules to identify x, y, and z. Let's try a little bit of a harder example. Okay, example 2. I have two parallel lines, which I've labeled as J and K, and I have L acting as my transversal. What we're trying to identify in this question is what is the value of x? Let's use our definitions to help us solve for this. First, what we need to look at is that this angle here is being identified as 9x plus 5. What I know is that opposite angles always have to be the same. So this angle here also has to be 9x plus 5 degrees. Because these two lines are parallel, these two angles here, the 9x plus 5 and the 70 minus 2x, are co-interior angles. What I know about co-interior angles is that they have to be supplementary. They have to add to 180 degrees. If these two things have to add to 180, then I can create an equation with that. I can start with 9x plus 5, and I can add 70 minus 2x, and those have to have a sum of 180. Now we can use this, some algebra skills, and solve for x. So 9x minus 2x will give us 7x. 5 plus 70 will give us 75. And this is equal to 180. To get x by itself, let's subtract both sides by 75. The left side will become 7x. The right side will become 105. The last thing I need to do is divide 105 by 7. When I divide both sides by 7, I get x on the left side and I get 15 on the right. Therefore, x has to be equal to 15 degrees. So in general, whenever you're trying to solve for a missing angle involving parallel lines and transversals, what is key is that you remember your definitions. You're going to have to remember things like corresponding angles, alternate interior, alternate exterior, opposite angles, supplementary, all of these different rules, and that's going to help us solve for missing angles. I hope this video helps. As usual, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.